right, folks, it's time for the next one. Dramatic readings from my blog, adamgolding.substack.com. You should all make one. Why? Don't you know there's a million reasons. There's a news ban. Barry Weiss had to quit the New York Times because she was censored there. Well, and Substack is not controlled by Mark Zuckerberg. Anyway, I digress. Or do I? Boundaries at Burger King. I didn't really say that like a title. Boundaries at Burger King. I'm going to start my new career as a vigilante. I already made $5 and a coffee. Let me explain. The coffee was a while ago. A friend was boarding the streetcar outside Timmy's, heckling back at a street harasser as she boarded the vehicle. In like a relay race, I took up the argument as she departed without skipping a beat. The dude was deep in Darvo, saying she had harassed him. Dude, I know for a fact she'd never speak to you unless forced to. He pursued me into the Tims, and I explained to him in a loud, booming voice, this is not how you're spending your evening. You are street harassing women. You will leave, etc. Not as nicely as that. And after he enjoyed the attention like a sick little child, exclaiming he'd read the Bible and that he was smart, I pressed the door into him as we concluded the argument, and he obeyed, frankly. The staff awarded me my coffee, but more recently I got $5. Here's how. I'd been chatting with a friend about the night economy town hall in which just talking to someone, confrontationally or not, wasn't on the list of options for how to de-escalate someone. Widespread cultural cowardice was simply assumed in the structure of the multiple choice question. Okay. We shared stories of drawing the line on people's behavior in public places. This person and I are friends because we both aren't bystanders. But as fate would have it, immediately after this strategy session, I made 2 outings and had to correct someone for boundary violations each time. First for coffee, then for Burger King. That's what the outings are for, not the violations. My morning coffee was ruined by a gross, aggressive dude. I sat and dunked my donut and gazed at the park, through the Tim Hortons window, thinking, why don't I do this more often instead of taking my order home? I was quickly reminded. A dude approached and I interrupted his opening question with a no. A syllable that was apparently irrelevant to him. Instant enemy rapist material alert. He pushed on with his preamble and request for weed, not the essentials of life, even by my standards, and proceeded to sit down at the table of someone who was actively saying no and not to talk to them. It didn't take long before I was screaming at him in the face to stand the fuck up and leave me alone. He eventually complied, but didn't. He sat in a chair 50 centimeters away and stared me in the face. I said, oh really, you're going to sit there? How's that going to work out for you? Unperturbed, he'd clearly been rewarded for this behavior before, and that was about to change. I'd already told him twice that this was going to be a life lesson. I stood up rapidly and pulled the chair out from beneath him, and he collapsed to the ground. He looked astonished, as if people's personal boundaries had been a fiction to him before. He pretended he couldn't get up. I kicked him in the ankle and screamed at him to get out of my space. I held the chair up, and he ran, able-bodied as fuck, across the street. And the baristas laughed as they put down the phone, saying, oh, he's across the street now. The dude, twice my age, on the table behind me, acted like nothing had happened and barely moved. Well, he nodded subtly like he might have done the same. As he had left, the other guy said to them, you'll let him scream at me like that, but I have to go? This is funny because they didn't even tell him to go, but they rolled their eyes. They know me because I've corrected other customers. They wish they had the freedom to. I'm acting out their fantasies, and righteous fantasies they are. But I didn't get a coffee this time. They can't give out free buddies every time at this corner. This was all pro bono. My second outing of the day paid off in monetary and therefore reductive terms. $5 was what the group of boys handed me in the Burger King after I got the man harassing them to leave. He'd been sitting silently when I entered, but I knew he was trouble. And before I could place my order, he started glowering and muttering at the group of boys, or undergrads, across the room. And I said, he was muttering, you're kids. And I interrupted saying, which is why you should leave them alone. His gaze met mine and became unbroken, predatory, and savage. I wasn't afraid. I was relieved he wasn't bothering them. I told him very simply to leave people alone, and he challenged me to violence. There's a bit of back and forth. At one point, picking up the yellow watch your step thing from the floor, and he swung it around like a baseball bat. He followed instructions, ultimately, and respected my statement that I did not want to fight him outside after he left. I actually saw him outside when I went to get a pop and came back to the Burger King. He seemed ultimately glad someone was standing up to him. Think about that one for a while. It's related to what I said in the Don't Smoke Crack in the Burger King bitch piece, about how that woman was reality testing, and previously the feedback she got was crazy. The woman wasn't crazy. The world around her was crazy, and that it was permitting. The feedback she was getting was that crazy behavior was allowed, which is crazy feedback to get. So anyway, in this other time in the Burger King after the crack pipe incident, the guy had left. A dude beside me, who was jacked, had scrolled on his phone when I asked him to call the police. Afterwards, he nodded timidly at me as if to thank me, and I scolded him. You know, you're really fucking useless. Did you even fucking call them? You tell him next time. Be a man. At least the children paid me.